So I would like to formally welcome you all to this webisode of BroTalk. Thank you all for your time. My name is Megs Reynolds, and I'm the Executive Director for that Do More Agriculture Foundation. And we are the national voice and champion for mental health in Canadian agriculture. Just a couple housekeeping notes. Feel free to do whatever makes you the most comfortable. So maybe that means keeping your camera off. Maybe that means changing your name or taking your name off so people can see it or can't see it, sorry. Feel free to add comments or questions as we go along. The easiest way is probably to put them into the chat. And with the chat, they can be private message to Do More or to Sean Brooks, who will be moderating as well if you're looking to stay anonymous. And I just want to mention that in the chat right now, there's a link to our resource page. So please make sure that over the next hour that we have together, you're taking care of your mental wellness and what you need. So that might mean taking a break, or that might mean logging off completely. We are thrilled to put on today's webinar with the support of Agriculture Financial Services. AFSC has been a really important partner of the foundation, I think since we were founded. And we're really excited about how we're evolving our partnership to be doing events like this, where we're really looking to normalize the conversation by having the conversation. As today's webinar is BroTalk, I will not be moderating like usual. I'm going to leave that in the capable hands of Sean Brooks, who will kick things off in a minute. But first, I want to pass the mic to Daryl Kay. He's Chief Executive Officer for Agriculture Financial Services, and he's going to further introduce today's topic and our guests. So thank you so much. And Daryl, it's all yours.
Well, thank you, Megs. Appreciate that. And good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining today for our fireside chat focused on men's health. My name is Daryl Kay, and I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Agriculture Financial Services. We are extremely proud to be supporting this event and the important work that the Do More Agriculture Foundation is committed to. I have the great pleasure of introducing today's panelists who have graciously agreed to share their own experiences as producers navigating the many stresses and unknowns that this industry can present. So I want to welcome Sean O'Grady, Quick Dick McDick, and Kyle Stewart. Today we'll hear real life stories from men who have faced mental health challenges in agriculture and learn more about the practical tips and tools that have aided them in their own mental health journeys. But in addition to that, we have the opportunity to build connections, share, and support one another. There's power in knowing we are not alone in our struggles and that our willingness to be vulnerable can help both ourselves and others. This is something that AFSC believes in and strongly supports. Farming and ranching is incredibly demanding and stressful. We understand that amongst everything else, mental health and wellness is not always a top priority. It doesn't always come easy or feel natural to talk about. So whenever possible, we welcome the opportunity to emphasize the importance of mental wellness and to highlight resources and strategies that our own people, clients, and community members can use to take care of their own mental health. So with that, I'm excited to hand things back over to Sean, and we'll get right into the panel conversation. Thanks again for joining us.
Thank you very much, Daryl, and thank you, Megs. And a huge thank you to Do More Ag. This obviously doesn't happen without the hard work and effort that you all put in. So thank you very much for the opportunity. My name's Sean Brook. I'm the president of Seed World Group based in Winnipeg, coming to you live this evening from Vienna, Austria. And I get to sit here with these fine gentlemen. As the name would suggest, it's BroTalk. It's boys talking to boys about boys. So our goal here is to have a wide open conversation. There's kind of no holds barred, talk what we're going to talk about. I want to shed a little light on my panelists here. Quick Dick McDick, first name, who'd have guessed it? Dick. Kyle Stewart is with us, and Sean O'Grady. We created a problem with being two Seans on a panel. So Sean from now on is OG. So OG. And I'm going to ask these guys to introduce themselves. And what I've asked them to do is to tell us their name, what brought them here, and what is their superpower. Is that fair, guys?
Sounds good to me.
Yeah? All right. Kyle, can I jump in with you?
Yeah, there we go.
Did you say me, Sean?
Kyle, yes.
Yeah, my name is Kyle Stewart. I ranch in Southwest Saskatchewan alongside my wife and our daughters. We have a cow-calf and yearling operation. I'm also the counselor for the rural municipality. I'm on the board of directors for the Canadian Ranch Roping Association and the executive board of the Sask Ag Matters Mental Health Network. What brought me here today is my interest in breaking the stigma in men talking about their mental health. It's helped me along the way, and I hope to help any way I can going forward.
Awesome. And superpower?
My
Other than spectacular mustache?
My superpower is I've maintained the same jean size since grade 10 and eaten whatever I've wanted.
What? Okay. The bar has been set, gentlemen. The bar has been set. Dick, can I come over to you next?
Yeah, sure. My name's Dixon DeLorme, otherwise known as Quick Dick McDick on social media, I guess. I'm coming to you live from the basement of a old house in Tufnell, Saskatchewan here, where we don't have daylight savings time. It's just the time, so that's neat. Yeah, I mean, I'm here obviously because I try and advocate for mental health as much as I can. And it's important for guys to talk about it, you know, being a cow-calf producer like Kyle, and we farm some grain as well. I spent some time in the oil field as well, just been around, you know, a lot of larger groups of people and namely men that are not okay with talking about mental health, and have had some brushes in the past that have helped me get past it. And hopefully by being here, we can help a few other people get past it too. And yeah, obviously thanks to Do More Ag and AFSC and everyone for putting this on here today, and just looking forward to chatting with everybody. And I mean, whatever, my superpower obviously is that I can grow a beard faster than any man on the planet.
Because you didn't have one a week ago.
That's right. Yeah, actually, I shaved it off last night. So
nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Dick. OG.
Hey, everybody. Fresh off a treadmill here this morning, so equally jealous of Kyle's superpower. Well, I guess both the superpowers, actually, because I continue to need cardiovascular activity to keep in my gene size. So good for you, Kyle. That's impressive. Real happy to be here as well. Kind of here representing some of the professional mental health side of things with these fellas, but as all of us do, you know, certainly personal stories and journeys as well that make it real. You know, I grew up in a rural part of Eastern Ontario. The farming for me ended with my dad, which switched into kind of more heavy equipment, farm equipment repair, and that side of things. And so, you know, familiar with being in shops, and like to still wear my flannel, even though I live in metropolitan Calgary. So yeah, happy to be here. My professional career is you know, started, and I still maintain a practice in child protection, and so kids suffering from abuse and neglect, which puts me in a courtroom from time to time testifying on behalf of child well-being and parental capacity. But interestingly, it's transferred out into a variety of community-based settings. I think there's lots of parallel experiences regardless of our postal code or our T4 slip when it comes to mental health. That's what I'm really excited about, is getting to be with a different group of people, you know, sharing actually the same message about the fact that we all struggle, but we can all recover as well. And so happy to be here to be a part of that conversation and that journey with these fine gentlemen.
Awesome. And I assume your superpower is going to have something to do with hockey.
Yeah. Yeah, not so much. You know, I perhaps wish it did more. The dream ended. The dream ended. My superpower is that I live with my lovely better half and 3 daughters and 3 female dogs, and I still have a little bit of hair, and some of it's still a bit brown. So that's a win for me.
Good work. Good work. Well, that's awesome, gentlemen. Thanks very much, and thanks for being here. For me, my superpower is that making gray hair look good is the #1 superpower for this guy. So I'm working hard at it, failing on the regular. Guys, I think that we're all here because we want to have a bit of an impact, and to be able to hold some space for a conversation that isn't always easy. I got reminded by my wife the other day that you're the guy who, when you came home from 4 hours with your friends and I asked 3 questions about their wives, you didn't know one single answer of those, even after you'd spent 4 hours with your buddies. So it's very easy to slip into these superficial conversations. I know that. And I think one of the things we want to talk today is how do we have some of those little bigger conversations, some of those more meaningful conversations. So I'm going to jump right into that, guys, to ask you each to tell me, what was the impetus? What's the scary story? The story that is the hard one to talk about of why this became on your radar of importance. Can I start with Dick?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, absolutely. It's a good question, and used to be something that I had a hard time talking about, but I just don't anymore. And for people that have heard me speak at a few events, it's the same kind of story. But my dad wanted to kill himself, and just over a long period of time, and going through the struggle that it is to try and find help for mental health. Be it in Saskatchewan or wherever we are, it's a very tough thing to find help for. Fast forward 10 years after that specific event, I found myself unknowingly in basically the same situation when I was working oil and gas. Just a lot of the same things that my dad had shared with me years later, that I was headed for maybe the same result that he was looking for at one point in time in his life. Stress, not able to eat, not able to sleep, not being able to escape, all the things that were pressuring me. And it just came down to the point of one day I got out of bed after having no sleep and a completely terrible night with my job the night before, which was a 24-hour call job at the time, with my head in my hands on the corner of my bed, saying that I hated my life. And if it wasn't for my dad 10 years after we'd got him help, being strong enough, being a guy that throughout our whole childhood of growing up on a cattle ranch, of being men don't talk about their feelings, suck it up. You want to cry, I'll give you something to cry about. That's kind of how we grew up on the ranch, And my dad, he knows it now, but he didn't know it at the time, was the first guy that was going to break the link in that chain in our history of genealogy in our family, that he's going to say, hey, I'm going to share with you what led me to where things were happening with me and why it got me to the point where I was suicidal. And had he not done that, I wouldn't have recognized it at the time. So I feel now that I've been able to find, a better place to be in my life, that it's just important for me to try and share it with everybody else, But that word suicide is one thing that people really don't want to use that word and keep it really quiet, right?
Yeah, it's very true. Painfully true. OG, thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I just appreciate Dixon's honesty and candor, and it really does speak to imagining that there are people in different corners of probably at least North America on this call, or certainly Canada, and that experience ringing true, right? People being able to say, holy cow, that sounds an awful lot like my family of origin, or even some of my darker days. I mean, I know it does for me, right? I mean, I'm on the other side of it, on the professional side, but probably what keeps my saw the sharpest is having my own personal struggles myself, is working on the textbooks and offering out the coping strategies and trying to create space for people, and then needing them myself, right? Going through some periods of my life where I struggled with panic attacks, and my mood became really, really overwhelming, and had some threats in my life that were really that they just kind of they shake you to your core, right? And I think there is almost a fork in the road where people have to make some really tough decisions about what they're going to do. I think it takes tremendous courage, right? And I think it's a new way of looking at courage. I think the courage I was raised in was probably the one that Dixon talked about. Is the courage is you don't put your hand up when you're struggling, you suffer in silence. I remember for me it was I was so overwhelmed and I would get nosebleeds, and so basically my body speaking to me that I was so overwhelmed and stressed by the things going on in my life, but because I didn't have a way to express that or to talk about that, you just keep stuffing it down. And I think we'll probably get into some conversations of some of the things that are readily available that keep us from that can keep things stuffed down, right? And so, since that time have built up a practice, and have had just too many conversations with people to know that it's just how important it is, right? And that, I think one of the things that makes it tricky, Sean, is that the thing that terrifies us as guys is we think that we actually might have to have something really inspirational to say, which is completely ridiculous. It's actually not about saying anything. Sometimes it's just about listening, right? And listening isn't waiting until it's our turn in the conversation to share something else. Listening is just truly listening to what someone has to offer. And, you know, I have a saying that if we can't talk things out, we start acting them out. And so for me, you know, when we can get people talking in a safe way, it's like you're kind of letting air out of a balloon, so the balloon's not ready to pop all the time. And I've certainly had times in my life where my balloon was ready to pop, and really fortunate that it didn't, and or at least not completely, anyways.
Yeah.
And so I think that's probably my why and my purpose, and certainly feel a little bit more integrity when I'm talking through people's pain with them, I've been on the other side of that experience as well, and don't feel like I'm full of shit when I'm telling people certain things that might actually work and help them through a tough moment.
Right. Kyle, I'm going to come to you in one sec. I just wanted to share that mine actually starts from guilt. I lost my my wife to suicide 6 years ago now, and that clearly I thought I could actually say that out loud without having a tear up, but I can't yet because there's a whole bunch of guilt to it. Like the originally the guilt was, what did I do wrong? What could I have done differently? How could I have had an impact on that? And then I think what that became was, as I started to tell my story and share with people and ask people questions, everyone has gone through something down that path. And that realization of the power that if you're brave for the first 30 seconds to tell your story, it is shocking, not shocking. It's comforting to hear what comes back from the other side in that conversation, because inevitably there's something that comes out of that because you've created enough space for someone to be able to have that conversation. So that was the impetus to me for having these conversations. Kyle, can you share a little bit about where you're coming from?
Yeah, for sure. So it kind of starts for me. I had lost a friend who I rodeoed with to suicide, and that affected a big group of people. And a year after that, my wife and I lost our daughter to cancer. And I had a friend reach out to me who I also rodeoed with. He was checking up on me to see how I was doing. And at that time, I figured I was gonna just lock everything away and deal with it myself in the ways I knew how to. And he actually opened up about his own struggles with anxiety and depression, and basically gave me permission to seek something, an alternative way of getting over what I was feeling. And it was amazing to me that this friend of mine, he was the type of guy who, from the outside looking in, had the world by the balls, right? And for him to admit that it wasn't as rosy as it might seem was really eye-opening. Everyone's got their own struggles and their own demons, and so from that on, that really opened up the door for me into not only getting over things myself, but also looking for opportunities to pay that forward and to get people talking.
Well said. Well said. I think a realization that I've had as I've started to have these conversations is that there's a lot of things that our double X chromosome compatriots on this planet do better than us. And this is one of them, like very pointedly one of them, right? About being able to have these conversations and talk about what's not going well. Even in my experience, even when we start to talk about what's not going well, it always has to end in, and this is why I'm still good, or this is why I'm going to be successful, or this is what I've changed or tweaked or fixed. There's that F word, fixed, so you don't have to worry about me. And someone told me 6 years ago, they asked me if I was letting people help me. And I said, well, yeah, of course, sure. If they want to do something, they can do something. No. Don't rob that from them. Don't rob that opportunity from them to actually help you, because that's good for them. That's good for you. And this idea of being able to create that space for someone is real powerful. It's real powerful. We talk often about creating insertion points. And actually it ties into one of the questions that I just received now. It is around how do we create insertion points to have some of these conversations, right? I said I spend 4 hours with a group of friends and don't know one thing about anyone in their family or anything that's going on in their life. Didn't do a very good job of insertion points there, Sean. And so the question was, often I find the conversation doesn't start till my buddies and I have had enough to drink and we're more open. How do I have the conversation when I don't want to drink? And so my question to you guys is, do you have any ideas or insertion points for us to use for these conversations? Because I'm pretty sure if we sit down and our first question is, hey, how's your mental health today? That might not get us to the end game that we're looking for. Maybe you'll tell me it is a good one to use, but I'd be curious to hear. Dick, do you have a thought on insertion points?
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks guys for sharing what you have there. That's tough stuff to talk about, you know. But it's kind of been the reason or the result of the creation of this character that I now have that's known online for being kind of a goofball and maybe a hard ass sometimes kind of thing. But the hardest way to get to somebody is like you said, like being direct with them, especially if it's somebody that you know doesn't really want to talk about something. If you just start prodding at them, you're not going to open them up. You're going to close them and push them back farther away. What works really good with me is I always like to try, go figure, start things off with a joke, you know, like I'll make some comment about something that happened with a cow or a combine or a truck or something like that, and we'll kind of laugh. But if you can get to the jovial side of a person, or you get it to the point where they don't feel like they're being attacked from a question, you can loosen them up a little bit is what I usually do. And then all of a sudden you can just slide it right in. But no, really, man, like, did that flat tire like make you want to throw things across the shop, or where are you at? And before you know it, you can just be having a candid conversation with somebody that you didn't know you were going to wind up in. And the catalyst that I always use is just humor. Just look for that one funny thing that maybe just happened. And if you can get to somebody in a more levitated state of mind, it's just a lot easier to just break those barriers. Your guard kind of gets let down when you're feeling kind of happy, you know?
Agreed. Kyle, thoughts?
Yeah, I totally agree with Dixon. I know something else. It seems like if you thank a person or give a person praise for something they've done, it drops their defense a bit, and maybe they're more open-minded to talking about things rather than, you know, like you said, you're not going to crack the conversation out with how's your mental health doing.
Yeah. So thank them, or be like, thank you for burying that combine right up to the axle. But how did that make you feel when you did it? You know? Or maybe give it a minute and then go, right? Yeah.
Right. OG, what's the professional opinion on this?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's certainly making a lot of sense. Well, you know, something that comes to mind for me is relationships happen at the speed of trust, right? And so I think when people trust us, there is usually an opportunity, and that is just built over time, right? We need to, you know, we need to be pretty consistent in our behavior, and I think for many of us, we haven't been, right? Like myself included. And so then I think it's about owning our story when we've done that. You know, I've been in conversations, whether it's locker rooms or parking lots or wherever, where we've probably, you know, not intentionally, but we've made it an unsafe space, right? By maybe making fun of somebody's mental health struggle. And so I guarantee in those situations, there was probably 5 or 6 more people who may have had the same thing going on. And then they go, well, holy shit, I'm never going to bring up my struggle because look at this poor person that's being made fun of or whatever. And so I think we got to own that when we've, you know, because I'll only speak for me. I've certainly been a part of those things. And I try to hold myself more accountable so that people would want to trust me to share something if they do have something going on, and to own that I haven't always been probably, again, although not intentional, probably that maybe the safest person with some of my own, you know, disguised judgments in the in the explanation of humor, right? I think parallel activities are also really, really important and deeply connected to the way that our brain works. Dixon was talking about being involved in hunting. I think there's a huge percentage of guys and gals as well that could probably care less if they get anything, but they live for getting into the cabin, getting a fire going, sitting there, you know, and regardless of whether they got something in their freezer, that's probably the bonus. So when we can do an activity that people share a common interest in, hunting, shooting a game of pool, you know what I mean, being outside, you know, whatever that may be, that sometimes can take the intensity down of the traditional sitting on a couch looking into each other's eyes. And, you know, to Dixon's point, how you feeling right now is probably not the best recipe. But I think what's cool about farming and ag are there are a lot of really cool contexts where there's a space that's created, a common interest, a bond, where that maybe creates the activity. And then if we are a trusted individual, that's probably where we can get to maybe some of those more meaningful conversations.
And if it's something that is of interest to the person you're approaching, all the better to approach with. Right. I found that if I'm willing to step out of what is normally I'm not a hunter. That's not my thing. But if I have one buddy that I ask if I can go hunting with him, and the only reason, if he's listening now, he's going to know my my shtick here.
Yeah, you just outed yourself.
I just want to make a connection with him. I don't really want to shoot something. I just want to make a connection with him, and that's the way that we get to do that. So I think these insertion points are really critical to have a few different bullets in our gun to be able to have those conversations. I know that when we were looking at doing this, like I'm truly embarrassed to say this out loud, but I caught myself. I was hesitant. Because there's probably going to be people on this that I know. I invited some people to come, and and they're going to come to this with the anticipation that, holy smokes, like Sean's mental health is in trouble. I'm worried about him, and then I'm going to get inundated with that. That was the thought I had. And thank goodness I caught myself to realize how ridiculous that is, because, wow, wouldn't that be terrible if everyone is concerned about me and they reached out to me to connect with me? That is not the biggest problem that a person can have in this world. But it's this temptation to think that you got to keep that to yourself and you got to only show that armor on the outside. Is there any ways or any things that you guys have shared in these conversations that helps to start that conversation? So like a reverse insertion point, something that you bring up or something that you share that draws that share out of somebody else. Is there any tactics? Tactics sounds like you're manipulative. Any ways that you've done that seem to work?
I don't know about anybody else. Yeah, I'm just gonna interrupt and go here. Sorry. I don't know about anybody else, but I've found that the biggest thing to make feel people comfortable coming up to you and talking to you about stuff, and like I do it lots with my character too, is I take a bad situation that I'm experiencing and I try and share it with as many people as I can. Whether it's a broken piece of equipment or cows out that are destroying the neighbor's crops or anything, you know, I try and take that situation and show it to as many people as I can, because I think we get caught in a misconception that we might be the only person that's struggling or that has maybe a broken piece of equipment, or we've blown a hose on a rock picker. And man, I must really be a loser of a farmer to be the only guy that's got this going on in the world. And how come when I open up my phone and I look at social media, all I see is the roses? Everyone's got something beautiful with a sunset and a rock picker in the background. How come I'm the only loser that's here broke down, not getting it done? And if we all realize that that's just not the case at all, that everybody's got a broken rock picker, sometimes it's just we don't see it because people are embarrassed to show. It's not failure. It's just sometimes it's failure, sometimes it's bad luck. It's just the way things go, right? If we share that more with other people, I think it's a great way to start a conversation, because I've had a lot of people just come up to me at trade shows and stuff that I go to and be like, man, I was having the exact same day you were until I saw that video of you trying to fix that hose. And I was like, you know what? Look, it even happened to Quick Dick. Maybe my day's not that bad. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I found that as a really good tool, and it helps me too. You know, it helps me kind of get the stress out of me and off my back a little bit. As I was like, you know what? How many other people are going through this right now? And you find out pretty fast that it's a big, huge, long stretch of comments going down there. Yep, that was me yesterday. You know what I mean? So trying to find common ground and being like, hey, you know, I've had times like that where it's bad too, you know. And like Kyle was saying earlier with his introduction there, you know, his friend was saying it ain't all roses on my side either. So the more we can share some of those thorns that are kicking around down there, the better the rose looks, you know.
Great advice. Great advice. And how long do you really have to be brave for in that scenario? Like it's not brave for 60 minutes. It's brave for like 20 seconds.
Yeah. I mean, the internet's forever, so it's kind of brave for a lifetime, but I mean, you just got to be okay with it. You know what I mean? But like, really, it's just, I don't know. For me personally, it's not a brave thing anymore. It's just now it's just the comedian coming out in me. But like, that's where I'm spoiled that I have that tool, and not everybody has that tool. You know what I mean? But it's just so important to find the courage to share it. You know.
Agreed. Kyle, what do you think?
Yeah, it's funny. I got a very similar story, you know, last winter, how cold.
Kyle freeze up on us, or is that me?
Oh, I've got Kyle. Give her hell, Kyle.
Okay. Yeah, so it was colder than heck for like a week straight there, and I was trying to get cows fed, and I blew a grapple hose, went to town, got it fixed. I put it on, go to feed again, and then blow the other grapple hose, go back to town, get another hose. So I had a lot of time to make phone calls in those few hours. And so I called a friend from Alberta, and they had field trouble on their tractor. I called a friend from BC. I think they had actually blown a hose too. And it was like, oh, everyone I talked to is going through the exact same thing. So it's not just me.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's crazy how many of us agricultural technicians break shit. You don't have to look very far to find somebody else that's got something broken. You know what I mean?
I think a blown hose is probably blown hose is probably a pretty good metaphor for a lot of things in our in our own functioning as well. So I really like what the guys are going with there. Yeah, I mean, a couple things that I think are really dialed in and on point. You know, Dixon talking about be the first one, right? Be the first one to put yourself out there, so that you know, that people go, well, here's this guy that, you know, is larger than life and has, you know, this really cool experience that he's doing, and here he is being vulnerable and talking about his own pain and struggle. So I think that's a really important tool, is to, you know, be the first one out of the gates, so to speak, when it comes to sharing the pain. And to Kyle's point, I think when people are going through a tough time, I think, you know, and this maybe goes back to what you guys both shared when you went through your tragedies earlier on. I think it's a mistake when we say, hey man, like, or whoever, you know, reach out to me if you ever need anything. And I think instead it's like, just so you know, I'm going to reach out to you, and may even, you know, run the risk of being a pain in your ass, but I care enough about you that I'm going to do it anyways. Right. And so I think sometimes that, to me, is a more authentic way, you know. And I think the reason why we kind of leave it at, hey, call me if you ever need anything, and we all know most of us are never going to make that call, sadly, because we struggle to be vulnerable in a time of crisis, right? And so I think if people are looking for the tools, it's maybe just so you know, I am going to bring dinner over, and I'm probably going to overstay my welcome, and you might even, you know, want to find a reason to ask me to leave, and that's fine. I can do that, but then I'll probably be back in 2 weeks' time to throw something on the barbecue again and because we just know, we know what pain is, right? And I think so sometimes it might be just doing that relational connection, like making the phone calls instead of, you know, because what Kyle could have done on his way to town is to text a buddy and go, hey, reach out, you know, if you got time sometime and we'll talk, versus I'm just going to call my buddies and I'm going to talk to them, right? And so I think that those would be maybe a couple of things leading the way, like Dixon said, and not just putting it out there of call me if you need something, but just doing something kind. I think, to me, I don't have anything more inspirational than what these two gentlemen are sharing, because I think those are really solid tools to carry around in the toolbox from my perspective, for sure.
I did it. If I can jump in again here quick, guys. I did. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, you bet.
All right, Sean, I'll try and be quick here. I had a situation go on, but like another thing I'd want to try and get people to be mindful of is trying. try and be your own critic a little bit too, and try and get outside of yourself and look at yourself from the outside looking in. It's funny that my life is just categorized on YouTube now, but I was going fencing there this spring, and I actually lost a wallet and was spending a better part of my day looking around for this wallet. And I caught myself in a moment. I have these moments all the time. I have them lots, just a matter of learning how to deal with them. But same thing, like my guards go up, my barriers go up, and like I'm losing my mind. I got 8 million things that I need to be doing, not walking around looking for a wallet that's got basically my life in it, like credit cards, all this stuff that have huge negative balances on them. And but like my mom reaches out to me and she says, "Hey, where are you? I'll come and help you look for your wallet." And I was in a moment, I was like in my mind, I was like, "Mom, I don't want your help looking for my wallet. I don't want you asking where I was or doing this or doing that. It's going to take more time to play it out to try and get you to figure out where I was for you to come and help anyways. And can't you just leave me alone?" You know, calm myself down a little bit, found my wallet. And you know what? This is important for everybody to do. I realized what I'd done. I phoned my mom and I said, "Mom, you know what just happened?" I said, "I was mad at you for offering to help me. That's what just went down in my world. And I'm embarrassed that I did it to you. I'm sorry I did it to you. And I'm going to try harder in the future not to have that happen, because there's no reason for me to lash out at somebody that would be just coming to offer to help me. I'm in a bad time in my life where I'm upset and anger's starting to take over. And I can't have that going on." But we talked about it. And that's all what started off with my dad starting this with us. He's like, "Just, you got to talk about it." Right. And well, you know what? I felt better. She felt better. And I approach that situation differently now, you know, but to try and get out of yourself and look at yourself from the outside in, it's a tough thing to do, but it's a good thing to try and do from time to time.
Yeah, really well said. I actually have fairly good confidence in myself to have a good conversation, but my problem is, or one of my many problems is, that I just don't remember to do it. So I live and breathe by this thing. And somebody gave me permission a few years ago to put things into my calendar like, "Hey, give so-and-so a call. Stop by this week and see this person." And put them into my, well, and to be completely honest, I put things like check in with your kid. I'm pretty sure I'm supposed to know to check in with my kids on a regular basis, but I don't. So it goes into my calendar to remind me. And then I have these spectacular conversations and pat myself on the back for having put it into my calendar. But I needed someone actually to give me permission to do that. Don't know why, but I needed someone to give me permission to do that. And then once I set that up, that reminder to do that, then you have these great conversations. You guys all have hit the nail on the head in pointing out that unless you have the conversation, how do you know? Right? It's how do we make that connection point? How do we make that happen? Kyle, if you had kind of one, I'm going to call it a challenge. If you had one challenge that you would put out to everyone that's listening to y'all here today, and a challenge that is something that will help them to be able to make some of these connections, or to be that little bit better friend or father, or whatever the piece is, some relation, what would your challenge be? What would you suggest to someone to give a try? Something, maybe it's new, maybe it's not new, but something that you think might be beneficial to them. Kyle, what would you think?
I would challenge people.
Did you see how I gave you some stretch time there to pick what you were going to say?
Thanks. My challenge would be to get together with a group of friends that maybe you used to do something with, whether it was a sport or some sort of something you all had in common and used to do together, and maybe time has spread you apart, or kids, or whatever it may be, but reunite that connection with either one person or a group of people, and either, you know, make it an annual thing you all get together, or, you know, something like that. I think that's important for everyone, is to maintain those relationships, and also in person. I think we get too comfortable having conversations and things like this.
Yeah. There's a handshake and a look in the eye component to this, isn't there?
Yeah.
Dixon, what would your challenge or suggestion be?
I would challenge anybody listening to try and identify what you feel your biggest weakness is and share it with somebody that you find it difficult to share it with, and find a way to have that conversation with that person. I think that the easiest way to start sharing be okay with sharing your feelings is to try and break some of those barriers down and make yourself vulnerable. And I think that's one of the most important things is if you don't have anything that you're shameful of or need to hide from somebody, it's going to make the conversation a lot better. And I find, hopefully you find too, that if people know what breaks me down, what gets to the core of me, or what I feel some of my insecurities are, it makes me easier to manage them myself. And before you know it, if you talk enough about them, they kind of fade away from being insecurities, and all of a sudden you're kind of comfortable with talking about them. And if you're open with what you feel is your biggest weakness, it's just, it makes it okay. It's not the easiest all the time, but before you know it, you'll get pretty comfortable with something that used to make you very uncomfortable.
Well said. OG?
Yeah, I'm a big thoughts guy. I certainly believe in the concept of what would be called cognitive behavioral therapy. So our emotions drive our thoughts, which drive our behaviors. And sadly, as humans, we are pretty prone to think negative thoughts about ourselves and about situations. And so the cool thing is we really can't change how we feel, but we can change how we think. And so, for example, if we got to this place in our head where we're going, what the hell's wrong with me? I might challenge us to think about, I wonder what's happened to me instead, right? And so instead of being judgmental about there's something wrong with me, going, oh man, there's just something that's happened along the trail here. And it makes sense why I'm struggling, and here's what I may try to do about it, whether that's reach out for help or pull a tool that we may already have. So I'm a big guy on trying to change our thinking traps and thinking patterns that we can get stuck in, because for me personally, there's a lot of those, and so I'm often challenging a lot of my thinking traps pretty regularly, and I find that pretty powerful. I don't always hit it out of the park, but even if we can like nub a base hit out there once in a while and change some of our thinking traps, that I, in my experience, can go a real long way to reducing some of the mood challenges like depression and anxiety that often fall